All right. We have our panel here in studio. We've got Joey finally showed up. He disappeared on us last week. We've got Trevor, Ronnie. We have Nicole at Duke joining us here in just a few moments. And I'm looking forward to, we'll probably have Sarah Brady Wagner joining us and even Rachel Mills. So as we begin the program, first to remind you, you are listening to The Y Factor, and you're welcome to join us by phone, 252 area code 247-7282. That's 247-7282. Of course, the toll-free number, 800-818-2255. Via email at viewpoints with an S, viewpointsradio@hotmail.com, and via Facebook at Viewpoints on the Talk Station. I do want to thank, and by the way, been a lot of Facebook postings here. I got to mention that to you, Trevor. But I first want to thank our sponsors for the evening and want to get started with that very quickly. Of course, Floyd's 1921 restaurant located at 4th and Bridges Street, beautiful uptown Morehead City, and Advanced Water Systems, the people that bring you Connecticut, folks that are practically reinventing water. And as always, to remind you about Advanced Water Systems, a family-owned business committed to outstanding service and quality products. The quality product, of course, being the Connecticut water system, both the non-electric water solution, as their water softeners are known, as well as a wide variety of reverse osmosis water purifiers and air purifiers. And in particular note, the K5 drinking water station. So if you want to find out more, go online to their website, ConnecticutNC.com, KINETICONC.com, ConnecticutNC.com. Of course, you can also reach out to them, Old Cherry Point Road in New Bern. Their office there, 635-6222. That's 635-6222. Home office and showroom, Highway 7 East between Newport and Morehead City, 223-4444, 223-4444. And so as I get the program started, we're still waiting for a few other of the panelists to join us. Let's say good evening to Nicole. Nicole, good evening to you. And I thought we had Nicole on the line, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Good. Okay. Nicole, good evening to you. All right.
Good evening.
Joey?
Hey.
I love that, hey. And Ronnie, good evening.
Greetings.
All right, let me get that microphone up. Okay, wait a second. That is number 4, right? Or is that number 4?
I think it's 3.
3. Okay, and to you, Trevor.
Hey, Lockwood.
All right, good to see you. Thank you very much. The question I've got both of them up. That way we'll make sure we've got them all. Okay, here's the question for the evening as we begin the program. I did not watch the, I did not bother to watch the game last night. And so I got up this morning and I turned to my cell phone and I watched the highlights of the game. First question to you, who in here besides Nicole went to the game? Anybody? No.
I didn't go to the game. I watched it, though.
How come you didn't go to the game, Nicole?
Because I didn't want to tent, and the tickets are incredibly expensive, and my parents wouldn't let me buy a ticket. So.
Oh, okay. How much are the tickets, by the way?
$3,000.
Well, I think it's more. I think the closer you get to the game, it gets more expensive.
Wow.
It's craziness. And some people fly all the way across the country, and they stay in a hotel, and then they buy a ticket, so it's so much money just for one day.
Well, not only that, I don't see how in the world a college student can afford to attend a game with. So, as a college student, you had to pay $3,000 or $4,000.
Yes, yeah.
You okay? By the way, we've got Rachel Mills joining us now as well. Rachel, good evening to you as well.
Hey.
All right, now.
Good evening, Lockwood.
Good evening, and Rachel and Joey. Trevor, myself, do we want to rub it in for Nicole about the game last night?
Put some salt on the wound.
Put some salt on the wound. Yeah, I like that.
You can go for it.
Nicole,
I'm not going to be responsible.
Nicole, what was it like? What was it like?
There's no wound because I'm not really into sports. In fact, I've never been to a Duke basketball game, so you can't rub salt.
Oh well, yeah, but that's no fun. Okay, here's the question: what was the reaction to William Zion? Am I correct? Is that William Zion's shoe? My question is, what was the reaction there on the Duke campus in light of the fact that it was Nike that failed?
It was a blowout.
Well, okay, but it was a blowout. But okay, my question, that's what they called it. My question to you: how did the students react to that, Nicole?
It was interesting. Obviously, everyone was upset. I watched the exact moment that it happened, and I saw people's reactions. But what I mentioned to you earlier, Lockwood, is that it was funny to see people kind of try to contain their outrage for Nike. So, there were people who brought it up and they said, oh, it's all Nike's fault. And then I could see the leftists trying to, kind of defend Nike, but kind of not, because they love Zion so much and they just saw Nike fail. So it was funny.
All right. What's the thought here in the studio? Let me hear it from you, Ronnie.
I mean, I don't think it's like a left or right issue. I just think Nike just had the biggest PR disaster in modern history, alive.
Well, one would have said that of Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
But it didn't damage that reputation. As a matter of fact, I'm hearing from Nicole that these students are now defending Nike in spite of the fact that it was it was a disaster.
Well, if they're leftists, I can't necessarily support that, because I saw empirically a shoe explode.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with that. They were all wearing Nike. Why didn't all of their shoes explode? Actually, it was funny. One of my friends said that Obama had paid someone to cut his shoe because he was a Parkio fan. That was really funny.
I like that, Rachel. I like that. All right. The other question, and then we'll move on to more important topics, is, this rivalry between Carolina and Duke, it was getting national coverage. And, of course, to your point, Ronnie, that shoe blowout is going to get national coverage everywhere. It's pictured everywhere. My question is, does this kind of event, is it academic in most opinions, or is it just seen as just a way to extend the college imagery? I mean, Duke and Carolina make a lot of money off basketball. You're shaking your head on that one, Ronnie.
They make a lot of money. I'm agreeing. Sorry. Yes, They make a lot of money off of it. I'm curious, does anyone know if these Nikes were specifically produced for the team?
Yeah, they are player-specific editions. They're called player exclusives, PEs. I used to own a pair from a former manager that I sold.
Wow.
So, they are unique.
All right, before we go to the break, I've got a caller standing by. Let me get Ernie from Emerald Isle on very quickly. Ernie, good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hey, I just got a question that was in my mind answered. Those are not just generic overpriced Nike sneakers. Those are the top of the line, the best they can make.
Right.
For professional and semi-professional sports.
Wow.
This is poetic.
Best they can do.
Bless their hearts.
Yeah, this is poetic justice. Nike manufactures their products in third world sweatshops and marks them up hundreds of percent.
Wow.
And I have no sympathy whatsoever for any bad PR that they get.
Okay. Thanks very much, Ernie.
Sure.
Okay. All right, we'll take a quick break on that. You're listening to the Y Factor here on the Talk Station, FM 107 AM 1240. When we get back, we're going to have our panel to talk about several things. I've got a big question. I want to talk about Jesse Smollett first. I would like to talk about that as a situation. I texted you all earlier today. I assume I got it out to you all. And I'm wondering what's going on in the world of, communications, social media, and the press in large. So I'm going to get your opinions, because you're the drivers of this. I say that, your generation. Stay with us here on the Y Factor on the Talk Station, FM 107 AM 1240. The Y Factor here on the Talk Station, FM 107 AM 1240. We have a full house here in the studio this evening. We've got Ronnie, Trevor, and Joey. We have both Rachel and Nicole joining us from the Triangle area. And I want to go to the topic of Jesse Smollett and what seems to be a pretty egregious accusation. But more importantly, let me just start with this, my observation. I hold Jesse Smollett accountable on this one, but I'm really wondering about the reaction that he received from a lot of news makers, that is, both politicians and members of Hollywood and the entertainment industry. I will fault the media here, but first and foremost, the issue of the politicians, the political fallout, and the all the organizations. and I would argue the talking heads, a la Joe Scarborough, etc. So my question to you is, who's the real loser in this? Those sources or Jesse Smollett? And I'll start with you on that one, Trevor.
Gosh, I don't know. The media. Well, first of all, Jesse Smollett is fully culpable for what he did, and that should be condemned. But the media are also sort of culpable at being so quick to believe, just as they were so quick to condemn the Covington Catholic High School students.
Right. Okay.
So,
all right. Do you on this one, Ronnie?
Yeah, it's nothing but a disgrace. There's a lot of cases like this that do need special attention, and he took up police resources at the time. He took up,
But that we can target him. But the real problem, and we've got Sarah Brady joining us as well. But the real problem is how the story just sort of just continued to percolate.
There were 5 different versions within 5 minutes. I mean, truly,
okay.
And you're talking about what was Hollywood's reaction. There were people from the community that knew that he intended to try to backtrack on this, but knew it was him right off. So specifically, I'll cite Cardi B saying, Jesse Smollett, I can't believe that this is the start to our Black History Month. Especially during that time.
All right, to you, Joey. I'm going to get Nicole, Sarah Brady, and Rachel here in a few moments.
Yeah, I think it represents something important about the news right now, that the need to begin with facts and then establish a narrative rather than beginning with a narrative and then molding or finding facts to fit with the narrative.
All right, I want to go to you on this one, Rachel Mills, who worked as a press secretary for a congressional office. What about your thoughts on this, Rachel? I thought we had
the Jesse Smollett thing, and I think it's the. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go for it. Mm-hmm.
It's the future victims of any hate crimes that will not be believed in the future, and that makes me sad because hate crimes do happen, and now whenever someone has this happen to them, they're going to get Jesse Smollett thrown back in their face, and that's the real crime. And I also think that Jesse Smollett needs to be charged with a hate crime himself.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm holding you at the last, Nicole, for a reason. I'm going to throw a curve at you in here in a moment, as I like to do. Sarah Brady Wagner is joining us. Sarah Brady, you also have worked in the area of communications. What's your thought about the Jesse Smollett story?
I actually have not tracked it as well as everyone else, so I'm going to withhold my opinions on it for now. I was very interested to hear everybody else chime in. It's kind of been interesting to be someone who's stepped back and waited for all the details to come in as everyone has continued to react.
Okay, and then to you on this one, Nicole, and here's the reason why I'm leaving you to the last. I'm going to look to you, Nicole, Joey, and Trevor. I'm keeping the rest of us out of it. This in relationship to the experience at Duke some 12 years ago now, related to the lacrosse players.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what was the reaction there on the Duke campus, Nicole?
Actually, it's been relatively quiet. I haven't heard anyone comment on it, and I think it's because, given that Duke is an overwhelmingly leftist institution, I think people are confused. But I do want to say one other thing, and that's I don't actually think the reaction of the media is that important, because it's not like right-wing news sources have not jumped on preliminary information before. I mean, I kind of understand why you kind of, as a hungry reporter, whatever, when I say hungry, I mean like ambitious,
right,
or just hungry for information, for scandals. I can understand why they would jump on something like this initially before waiting for all the facts.
Okay, but let me interrupt here. Let me interrupt here very quickly, Nicole, and say to you, I'm not trying to be an apologist for the news media, but when a senator, Cory Booker, when Gillibrand, when members of Congress, when folks of significant influence and importance start making comments about something, reporters report those comments. So what's really, I want to bring up the reason for the Duke lacrosse case. Mm-hmm. It was upsetting over the media, but it was an organization, institution. It was a district attorney. It was the university. And I'm still looking at, and Joey, you and Trevor remember this probably, and I'm sure you do, Rachel. I think it was 80 professors who called for the dismissal of the lacrosse players and basically wanted them ridden out of town on rail. I mean, nothing has ever happened to those people that I know of.
Oh, those professors have never been punished in any way.
I know, and so I'm looking
it was 88, I believe, to be exact.
88,
the Duke
okay.
88, but in fact, I knew a few of them, and they're still. If you're tenured, you are bulletproof.
See, here's the thing that's interesting, and this is where I want to take the question. Why is there now this rush to judgment? And I've got to juxtapose this rush to judgment with Jesse Smollett in comparison to the Sandman, Mr. Sandman from the Covington Catholic High School. There was a rush to judgment in both instances. And I'm wondering, is it, to your point a moment ago, Rachel, have we become so compelled by social justice issues that we're willing to think the worst in every case? To you on that one, Rachel.
Yes. And maybe, I don't know that there's ever been a fake hate crime that has been of this profile. Like, it's certainly happened before, and, on my Facebook feed, you'll see people compiling, and you'll be like, oh, yeah, I remember, this person faked a hate crime, and that person. But I don't think it's ever been a celebrity, or a I don't know that he's really a celebrity, but he's an actor on a major TV show. So, I mean, maybe this will make people, like you said, wait for the facts before they make their judgment. But at the same time, there could be instances of real hate crimes where there isn't a lot of evidence, and they're going to have a stronger burden of proof that might be unfair, if you think about it. But yeah, I think we all need to let cooler heads prevail in the future before we rush to judgment and jump on scary bandwagons.
Go ahead, Nicole.
So I really don't think I think the problem of people rushing to judgment pales in comparison to the fact that even after all of the information comes out, there are still people defending him. I mean, Don Lemon, for example, recent comments he made about how it wasn't his fault, something about a public opinion court, and like trying to defend him. I mean, again, I keep going back to the Kavanaugh controversy. So many Yale and Harvard law school professors walked out, even though there was no evidence. Like, they are literally trained in the law. They should understand the principles that underlie our justice system the best out of everyone. And they were still. I don't even think the time that it takes for people to judge matters, because even like decades later, years later, the Duke lacrosse scandal, there's still people who are defending was it one woman who made the false accusation? Yep. There's still people like that. I was talking to an alum, and he mentioned that the Duke lacrosse scandal was actually pivotal for Duke's culture, in that was the moment at which students started to expand the definition of sexual assault to include all of these fringe incidents. And that was when their victim complexes really started to fire up. So it's not like that taught us a lesson. It did the opposite. It backfired. That's what's really concerning to me.
Okay, I like that term, victim complex.
That's a great point.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, well, yeah, you have events serving a narrative rather than basing things on what is actually happening.
Okay.
And you refer to that as being a social justice issue. That's not purely a social justice issue. Just social justice, or different version of it, is one narrative that people operate in, that they see events feed into, and it lowers the bar for evidence for people. Like Kavanaugh, in a lot of ways, was convicted for who he was prior to the facts of the case. And that is happening in all political conversations now more because of the confidence that people have that their narrative, the way that they view the world, is correct. Without it doesn't require as much evidence because they're already convinced.
Okay, I'm curious. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Some of it too might be worth, just contributing to the difference in the way that we consume media now. I mean, we're so exposed to every time that a terrible, horrible hate crime happens, it is front page news and it is right in your face. And when you have access to all of the terrible things that happen over the entire United States, it can really quickly seem like these things are happening all the time. So as soon as you are faced with a situation where a terrible thing might have happened, you have in your mind more instances of when this terrible thing has been true than you do have examples of most of the people in my day-to-day life are not this terrible. Maybe we should withhold judgment.
Well, the other aspect of it is I'm wondering is this a result also related to the term narrative that you brought up a few moments ago, Joey, an issue of silo communications. We run in just one silo of source of information. And so we tend to believe everything within that stream of information. Is that part of the problem? And what I'm really wondering here is, how do we break out of this? Because just to put the onus on you, it's your generation that's sort of feeding this frenzy.
I don't think that's true. Not more so than any other generation.
I think that technology just stimulates that we are the ones that do that.
Yeah, why? Everybody's on social media.
Yeah.
If you're gonna blame social media, then you can't blame millennials by proxy.
No, boomers have Facebooks too.
I still blame millennials.
You do?
I don't think technology has anything to do. I mean, it does have something to do with it, but yes, our parents use technology too, but they're not the ones fueling the frenzy.
Why do you say that?
Because they're just not. Look at statistics. Look at voter statistics. Look at all the people who identify as Republican, and then look at the people who identify not as liberal but as leftist. Because there's a huge difference nowadays. Look at the young members of Congress, and see if there's a pattern between what you identify as socialist Democrat, like establishment Democrat, Republican, and look at age. There's a direct correlation.
Okay, I don't think problems with political communication and extremism in politics that is not solely people who identify as leftists, though.
Sure, not solely, but I'm not talking about absolutes here. I mean, just recently, the statistics came out for this year about how many young people and millennials and whether they prefer capitalism or socialism, and an overwhelming majority prefer socialism.
All right, we're going to get wait.
Can't just ignore that.
We're going to get back to that in a moment.
But if
Nicole,
we're talking about recent statistics that have come out too, baby boomers seem to spread the most false information on social media.
Yes.
I mean, we can go back and forth on this. Everybody is fueling the same problem.
Okay.
We're all part of it.
But here's the quick question before we go to the break. How do we stop this? Is there a means out of this? What do you see as the future? This is really distressing in light of the fact that anyone can be accused of something now and it goes viral. Go ahead. Were you good, Ronnie? Your thoughts?
Well, I simply, what I mentioned earlier, technology's evolved so much and stories are coming out, 5 versions, 5 seconds. I don't know. I don't know if there's a way to control such a thing.
I think
Trevor?
the onus is on the media consumer to be more discerning in how and what we consume, and perhaps allowing more time before we fire off tweets and posts.
Here's where I'm frustrated. And to Nicole's point a few moments ago, let's take the case of Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, he was guilty before any evidence was ever presented. He was, for all intents and purposes, guilty. And the folks that were accusing him or charging him or finding him guilty were the very leaders that we elected. I mean, it's really kind of...
In the way that he was guilty, he's still guilty.
Okay, wait a second. The way he was guilty, he's still guilty?
I mean, just in the sense of who he is and holding the political opinions that he does.
Yeah.
He is viewed by many as being immoral.
Wow.
Unfortunately.
Woo.
Because he has one of the most conservative voting records as well in the decades before when he was a judge.
I can agree with you on that. I do.
Yep. Okay. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We've got Sarah Brady with us. We've got Rachel and Nicole. We have Joey, Ronnie, and Trevor here in the studio. Let's talk about the issue of socialism and the new candidates being presented. Bernie Sanders. Oh, speaking of which, how come, by the way, we're not seeing a lot of news coverage on the events in Virginia with Lieutenant Governor Fairfax, Governor Northam, and the Attorney General. Who? Yeah. Why are we not seeing anything on that?
What are you talking about?
But we're not
6 months ago, Locke.
I know, but we. Well, all right.
In media time, at least.
Stay with us here on the Y Factor. The Y Factor here on the Talk Station FM 107 AM 1240. I know that our panel from off. That's Nicole, Sarah Brady, and Rachel have been listening to the commercials in the background, and I hope they're still back with us. I want to go to the issue of the candidates for the Democrat Party. Of course, Bernie Sanders raking in $6 million. I want to start with you on this one, Rachel, and I'll go to you on this one after that, Sarah Brady. What about this? How important is that $6 million number? What does this say about the Democrat candidates, in your opinion?
Well, apparently they're giving their student loan money to Bernie Sanders because I think student loans are like record underwater.
They are. They are.
And car payments too.
Right.
So that's interesting. They have money for a socialist and not for their car payments or their student loan payments.
All right. And to you, Sarah Brady, your thoughts, since you both have worked in political campaigns.
Well, I think, it's a little, funny but reductive to say that they're all underwater. When people have money, they do contribute to things that they think are worthwhile. And I think it's important to note that seems to be what's happening with Bernie Sanders, just like what happened with Donald Trump. As much as he gets a lot of credit for having self-funded his campaign, a lot of the money that actually went into the expenses that his campaign incurred were small donations from lots of people around the country.
Okay, and Nicole, there at Duke University, what exactly is the feeling, again, among Duke students? And you've been pretty critical of your institution. I'm sure there are conservatives there, one or two. Nicole?
Yeah, and I mean, there are a lot of conservatives, actually, a lot of closeted conservatives, especially in the midst of Greek life. And so deep into the frats, there are lots of conservatives. But anyway, it doesn't matter because they don't say anything. So it's like they're not there. But essentially, it's funny, in my conversations with other students about the candidates, there's still this emphasis on the difference between socialist and democratic socialist. So, and I think that's fascinating because AOC obviously identifies as a democratic socialist, Bernie Sanders too. And I have my opinions on this, and I think that the only difference between democratic socialist and socialist is that in socialism, the government, the state essentially controls all means of production, but then democratic socialism is, we're going to let you have some private production, but we're going to regulate all of it. So it's really funny because I think it's the DSA, or the official site of democratic socialism, says they actually make the claim that they understand, even though they're vehemently anti-capitalist, they understand that you can't just go from a capitalist society to a blatantly socialist society. So democratic socialist is like easing your way into it.
Okay. By the way,
and young people still buy into that, and they think that the word democratic means that the socialist part gets negated, or that it's okay, or that it's just a little bit of socialism.
Okay, this has been bothering me.
Go ahead.
This has been
Joey.
bothering me a ton lately because all they keep saying on Fox News every time they talk about any of the Democrat candidates or specific ones like Bernie Sanders and AOC,
You're watching
they keep
Fox
saying,
News?
"Oh, they want us to be like Venezuela. They want us to be like Venezuela. They don't want you to have this. They don't want you to have this. They want you to have to be eating dogs." It's such an extreme way to represent something.
But wait a second,
and it is not productive to do that.
But look at what happened in New York.
People support Bernie's
regime. Like he has said that several times. He even identifies as a Trotskyite.
I primaried Bernie and worked on the campaign that primaried Sanders last time, and I do have a little insight.
And
it's incredible that he's replicated the $27 yet again on average, because he had about 330,000 grassroots donations, racked up that $6 million within 24 hours. And what I will say is, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, even, Mayor Pete from South Bend, everybody is running on this very progressive platform, even describing themselves as democratic socialists. But I would like to say that there are members of, say, that Democratic Farmer Labor Party of Minnesota, like Amy Klobuchar, who are actually going for the nomination in a very practical way and have actually made major legislation that's expanded lives empirically. So yet she's not getting as much attention as she deserves because the campaign coffers and the network that Sanders has.
But what about, is the message of socialism, the whole socialist message, is that key to young voters, in your opinion, Ronnie?
To younger voters, I would say, unfortunately. I'm one of the younger folks who actually worked for Hillary, worked in that realm. I don't, and this is something Amy Klobuchar said in the CNN town hall that I wish more people watched. She said that those goals are aspirational and that there's no way our nation with the $21 trillion national debt can pay for 4-year college for all of the qualified students, yet 2-year colleges, community colleges and those institutions should be free.
Did I share my thoughts related to the role of college debt and socialism with you guys last week? I've shared it before. Okay, let me just throw it out. And Rachel, don't hesitate to jump in on this one. The fact that we've got
I have some thoughts.
The fact that we've got so many students in debt, and they're literally drowning in debt, which they can't get out of because it's a federal law, makes them inclined to say, why don't we just have free education? Why don't we just relieve us of that burden of paying the debt, which is a step in the socialist direction? To your thoughts on that, Rachel?
Well, there is something, if you haven't heard of modern monetary theory, you need to write that down and Google it, because that is how AOC wants to pay for the Green New Deal. And there was a tweet that went around from a professor who, I forget her name, but she did a tweet where she asked, can we afford the Green New Deal? And she answered her own question saying, yes, the U.S. government can afford to pay for anything that is priced in its own currency. And that's a very scary theory to put forth seriously, because that's highly inflationary. But they're saying that the role of taxation is to tax away the inflation when it gets too hot. They equate it to like a sink. You fill up the sink with your dollars, and then you drain it away with taxation. And that's how you, in their mind, that's how you keep everything under control. But it does not work that way in reality. Well, so, I mean, under that theory of thought, all Venezuela needs is just a more aggressive tax policy, and they'd be fine.
Right.
I mean, clearly that's ridiculous, but people are buying this. Serious people are thinking this way.
All right.
Part of the theory also involves the strength of the economy and the sovereign currency that you're pegging it on. So the idea that America could pull this off, whereas, say, Venezuela could not, is based on the idea that the other function that taxes serve is not just to pull money out of the economy, but specifically is to pull dollars out of the economy. So you can't pay your taxes with Bitcoin. You have to pay them with U.S. dollars. So it forces you to use the U.S. currency, and that's how, it, at least in theory, tries to maintain a balance between money going in and money going out.
Wow. Yeah, I'll tell you what, this is a little high. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna, I don't want to debate economic theory right now, but I was going to say, I think what's so appealing about a lot of the Democratic candidates, whether it's in Congress or for president right now, isn't socialism, isn't people wanting free things. It's the same thing that was appealing about Donald Trump, that people view certain people as being anti-establishment, and they view them as having their best interests at heart and having a positive opinion of them, bottom line.
Okay, Ronnie, would you agree with that?
I would, and I would like to add, there's a lot of GOP seats where you got to pay attention to the primary, and a lot of these millennial voters that are actually Republicans do try to primary some of these Republicans that are incumbent.
Hold on. I want you to know that I was introduced to Rachel Mills by a question I asked her.
Uh-huh.
It had to do with the millennial vote. And Rachel, this is now 4 years ago, Am I longer
Yeah.
than 4 years ago? And your response to me was,
Millennials will never vote. Young people will never vote.
all right, Trevor, you haven't said anything here. Let me hear your thoughts on any of this. I mean, what about these candidates? What is so appealing about the Democrat candidates? And it's interesting. They do. Is there one candidate? You said Klobuchar, as pardon me, pronounce her last name. Klobuchar. That she is not as socialistic?
Not at all. She's in Minnesota. She's in the middle of the country, and she's also in the middle of the party.
Okay.
She's co-sponsored so much with Republicans, specifically Susan Collins. She works well with Susan.
All right, Trevor?
I'm obviously not a firm believer in the whole Venezuelan stuff.
Right.
But I understand the merit where some of the Democratic candidates are coming from, especially with regard to wealth inequality in America and that widening gap. I believe 10 Americans own half of America's wealth, if I'm not mistaken.
Easily, maybe more.
And I think that's an important question to talk about.
All right. We're going to take a quick break on that. We're running out of time. Very interesting conversation on the issue of socialism, the Democrat Party. We're going to stay on politics. I want to talk about the impact of today's announcement related to the 9th Congressional District, what they think of this. Stay tuned with us here. Stay on tune with us here on the Y Factor on the Talk Station FM 107 AM 1240. All right, as we get back to our panel of millennials, I've got another topic I want to bring up, and it has to do with the 25th Amendment. I'm going to actually look for a vote on that. But first, let me remind you about our sponsors, and of course, let me remind you about Floyd's 1921 Restaurant. Had a call earlier today from folks in Greensboro area, wanted to know about the status of Floyd's Restaurant. Had to inform them, still not quite open yet, but the reputation is far and wide, and that's Floyd's 1921 Restaurant, located at 4th and Bridges Street in beautiful uptown Morehead City, where Chef Floyd is renowned for outstanding Southern cuisine and also outstanding service. And in the process, just to remind you, you still can enjoy Chef Floyd's cooking, although it'd have to be catered. He will cater events, so don't hesitate to give him a call, 727-1921, or go online to their website or their Facebook page. Make the arrangements. That's Floyd's 1921 Restaurant, and of course, they will be opening soon. I'm getting stories on that daily. I'm just waiting for the announcement. Stay with us. We'll be sharing that with you as soon as we find out. We have Nicole and Rachel and, Nicole, Rachel, and Sarah Brady on the line with us. And the topic I want to go to, we've got Joey, Ronnie, and Trevor here in the studio. The topic, 9th Congressional District, the decision today that, basically Mark Harris said that he misspoke, we'll use that term, and he in fact had discussed some recommendations that he drop one of the operatives that was working for him in Bladen County and I think also Robeson County. And he announced today that he was withdrawing his nomination, and he thinks that a new election should be conducted. Real quick question to you, Ronnie. What impact does this have on the whole concept of voting in North Carolina? Does it give you faith and confidence? And the second question is, what does it do to the party affiliation, particularly Democrats?
Well, I will say that race was astronomically close. The apparent number of tampered ballots was around 1,000 or discarded, and the vote margin was 905.
Right.
And I've been on ballot canvases before when I worked for Roy Cooper's campaign. You have to be very stringent.
But here's my question: does it give you faith in the voting system?
The fact that this happened, no.
Okay.
I honestly no.
All right. Joey?
I'm all for paper ballots.
Okay. All right.
I haven't been keeping up with it.
Okay. Trevor?
Yeah, I know a little bit about it, but not enough to really.
All right, let me go to Sarah Brady. You've, of course, involved yourselves in campaigns. Does this...
I know
does this
way too much about it.
Does it damage the credibility of the electoral system, voting system?
I think what it does is it points to what the real issues in the system are, rather than just relying on kind of the rhetoric that comes out of.
Okay.
I mean, we literally, as this, the first signs of this event were coming to light, was at the same time that the Republicans were pushing through the final details on their new voter ID law, trying to protect against just the fear of in-person voter fraud, when it's been shown for a long time now. And now, I mean, we have really clear, hard evidence that the real problem is of absentee ballots, and it's an issue that we don't necessarily have great solutions for just because we haven't addressed it.
Okay, good point. And to you, Rachel Mills.
It's not a good look for the Republican Party, that's for sure. Did you see his son take the stand?
Yes. And his son had to say what he had to say because he is a federal attorney. So he had to do. He came out looking good, in my opinion, because it had to be tough on him. Nicole, much conversation about this on the campus by any chance?
No, and I know very little.
Okay, now I'm going to wrap it up with this quick question. The efforts on the part of the FBI to raise the specter of the 25th Amendment, that is, removing the president due to lack of confidence or other challenges, was that a wise decision? Just a yes or no to you, Ronnie.
No.
Trevor.
I don't know about this one.
Okay. Joey.
No.
Okay.
But I think we need really strong safeguards to make sure that the president's capable for performing his job.
Nicole?
I don't think so.
You don't think it was a wise decision? All right. Rachel?
No.
Okay.
And the FBI is not in much of a good position right now because they're looking extremely corrupt, if you've seen the latest.
Right. And to you, Sarah Brady, your comment on this one.
I think the issue is a valid one that we should address. I mean, especially when you've got a very old executive, we should probably have some sort of established test or, measurement for his cognitive abilities. However, I think kind of leaking it and whispering about it and saying, well, we might do this is a terrible, terrible way to handle it.
All right. I'm going to ask you all to stay with me. We're going to chat briefly here in just a few moments off air. The Y Factor. I want to thank Trevor, Ronnie, Joey, Nicole, Rachel, and Sarah Brady. You've been listening to the Y Factor.